Hello and welcome to the third and the Don Football Show. I am Joe. With me is Cecil, as always. Here to talk some more NFL football. We are through Week 10. Cecil, football season is getting closer to that end that we don't like to see because we don't like having nothing on TV in the summers. But other than that, the season's going well. A lot of stuff going on that we weren't able to predict, which makes it more fun. But how are you doing?
That was great. And like talk about things we couldn't predict. Last Sunday was an absolutely great day for football. A lot of upsets, a lot of things we weren't expecting. Some of us maybe more excited about than others, but we're ready to dive into it and talk about the upcoming week.
Let's do it. Let's do it. All right, so we'll start with our recap of Week 10. We're going to start off with a Thursday night game that we said before the game that, hey, this is one where you might want to take your significant other out on a date. You can miss this one. It was a bad weather game between the Falcons and Panthers. Carolina was the home team. They win 25-15. Rain was off and on. Winds were off and on. They rushed with Deontay Foreman 31 times, 130 yards, one touchdown. He admitted he was gassed. I'm sure he was sore after this game. But you win the rushing battle, you win this game with the bad weather and kind of teams that are both not the greatest.
Yeah, I mean the Panthers had a game plan going in. They executed it very well. They had some key moments on defense as well. They were able to really stop the Falcons' rushing attack, which was the key to Falcons' success at all. So I mean, there's really not too much to talk about in this game other than, the Panthers just ran down their throats and the Falcons didn't have an answer.
Absolutely, and the Panthers, again, we mentioned this when he was fired, but maybe fired Matt Rule too soon. You're getting away from the franchise quarterbacks at the top of the draft this year. That seems to be their biggest problem is they haven't had a quarterback since Cam Newton was in his prime. So we'll see how they handle that situation this offseason. We'll move to Sunday. The Seahawks and Buccaneers played in Germany, the first German game in NFL history. Leonard Fournette gets hurt early in this game. He also, before he gets hurt, throws a pass to Tom Brady, who looked miserable trying to make the play and then ended up making a tackle. But Rashad White steps in for 105 yards at running back for Fournette. The Seahawks, try to make a comeback here. They were down by 14 at the half. Geno Smith does a pretty good job, but they fall just short to the Buccaneers. And the Buccaneers now 2-0 since Tom Brady's divorce. Now they're 500. Look like they're doing pretty well in the NFC South.
Yeah, I mean the Bucks have won two games. This Munich game was a pretty good watch. They beat a quality team, the Seahawks. I'm not ready to just say the Buccaneers are back by any means, but I mean they're putting themselves in position to win the easy NFC South. The Falcons are faltering down the stretch. I mean, it's their division to take at the end of the day. They could probably, if they go 9-8, they're going to win this division at this rate. So, quality win though, that's what's going to become more important for them because in these weak divisions, you're going to win the division probably, but what does that mean come playoff time? So, good win for them. The Seahawks did not look as good. I don't know if they're starting to come down to earth or more. It's just the travel going, to a different continent is a lot on a team. So we'll see kind of how they bounce back this week.
Absolutely, that was a good game, and we'll follow that one up with the 1 p.m. game that was arguably the game of the season. So we had the Vikings beating the Bills 33-30 in overtime. The end of this game was specifically what was crazy. The Vikings were able to come back in the second half. 4th and 18, Justin Jefferson makes an incredible catch, one-handed, where he steals it out of the Bills defensive back's hands to convert for Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins then just keeps on finding Justin Jefferson the rest of the game at that point. Why would you look for anyone else? He had 193 yards receiving and one touchdown. They get to the goal line. Dalvin Cook drops a pass. They think the game's over. Kirk Cousins doesn't get in the end zone on a QB sneak. A lot of things go wrong. So the Bills get the game and get the ball back, and they think they win the game. But Josh Allen fumbles the snap. The Vikings recover, score a touchdown, get the extra point. They tie the game, go to overtime, get a field goal in overtime, and win the game. So it's just crazy how it all ended. And the Vikings getting a very big win for them to kind of make their legitimate case that they're a legit team.
Right. This is one of those signature wins we were waiting for from the Vikings this whole season. Justin Jefferson went off. There's no other way around it. The man was making catches that don't even. I want to see where's the Amazon next gen stats on these catch probabilities. That's what I want to know. Because there were some just absolutely amazing ones out there. He was playing on a different level, and really they played up to their potential. Dalvin Cook wasn't super involved till later in the game, and they came back from a huge deficit. Will this happen every time? I don't think so. A lot of things seem to bounce their way. I think this injury to Josh Allen is definitely affecting him, especially considering how much they were trying to run the ball more and more short passes and things like that. So we'll see. Only time will tell how much his injury is going to affect Josh Allen down the stretch, especially since if he's going to keep playing, they're not going to get really a chance to heal it or anything like that. It's just going to keep getting used every week. But yeah, I mean the Vikings, nothing to take away from them. This is a great win for them. Let's see how much they can do this throughout the rest of the year. If they keep dominating people, and then come playoff time, they're right now they're in a place where they could get home field advantage throughout the playoffs, which is absolutely crazy. Um, where they end up after that, I don't know. It really just depends on the matchup. I feel like with the Vikings, with how far they could go, because at this point, is there a route for them to make it to the Super Bowl? Absolutely, but there are some hard wildcard teams they could come up against really quick in this, and if they play like they did this weekend, they'll beat anybody in the NFC. But if they keep playing more in the middling, come back from behind at all times with even the lower teams, they play down that level, I don't think they're going to make it as far in the playoffs.
Yeah, we'll see. We might have a preview of the possible playoff matchup coming up this week. Vikings and Cowboys is going to be a good one, I think, this weekend. So we'll see how that goes. Go to some other NFC North teams. We have the Lions beating the Bears 31-30. They scored 20. The Lions scored 31 or 21 fourth quarter points to come back in this one. So that's a little bit disheartening for the Bears. Dan Campbell gets the very big win. I mean, this is a step in the right direction from last year. If he gets a couple more wins, I feel like you get more comfortable with him keeping his job. The Bears, the loss kind of stinks, but I mean, when you trade your defensive players like they did, that's going to happen. And I mean, mostly if I'm a Bears fan right now, Cease, I'm just sitting here just loving Justin Fields. I mean, 147 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns, 167 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception to go with that. But more important than winning games right now for the Bears, seeing him progress and play really well. If he gets a defense next year, he could win some of these games. This could be a playoff team if they help him enough next in this offseason.
Yeah, I mean, it's become the Justin Fields show for the Chicago Bears. Win or lose, he's going to get a lot of yards, all purpose, between rushing and passing. They finally, we talked about this all year long, take the training wheels off and change the offense to something that suits Justin Fields. Stop trying to force him to stay in the pocket. They've done that the last couple weeks, and it's led to huge success for their offense. Now, their defense obviously is weak now. They've mortgaged a lot of people off. Roquan Smith got traded. So, I mean, there's a lot of key role players that are gone now to trade to try to build the team for the future, which is smart considering where their season was and how good the Vikings are in a wild card. It'd be hard for them to even do anything, even with their full staff they had going in. That being said, I mean, the future looks good. If they can build, maybe Chase Claypool becomes the receiver they're hoping and becomes a much more reliable target for him. That could be huge. And then, you got a running game that can be pretty good. Khalil Herbert went out, put on IR. I don't know if he's going to return this season. They might just shut him down. But you've got Khalil Herbert, Justin Fields, David Montgomery. I mean, that's a really great rushing attack right there. I think the passing game will come together. I'd love for them to get another, great receiver, maybe an offensive lineman of some sort early in the draft again to shore it up even further for Justin Fields. But from there, I mean, get some young defensive players that can really build this team. Get some pass rushers in there, and I think they'll be in a good spot for NFC North that I don't think the Vikings will continue this kind of dominance for more than another year. So I think the NFC North could be very much up for grabs in the next couple of years, and the Bears could take full advantage of it.
I'm with you on that one, Cease. It's, as you said, Packers changing the guard, Lions not quite being there. The Vikings are good now. We'll see how long that lasts. Bears could be a team to watch out for. Next game up was maybe one of the more boring ones of the weekend. 17-10, Titans beat the Broncos. Both these offenses were just not very good. That obviously played a part in this. Derrick Henry was shut down for 53 yards. Russell Wilson still is having his struggles. But at the end of the day, this is how Titans win games. They're not going to ever blow teams out, but when they have an inferior team come in, they're going to win by like a touchdown, even if Derrick Henry isn't running well.
Right. There were times where the passing game just really struggled in this game for the Titans. That really, they're not a passing team for a reason, obviously. But it's one of those things where when the running game is that ineffective, it's because everyone on the Broncos team is selling out against the run. And then also it seems that the Titans, and this is one of the things that's driven me crazy over the last couple weeks, is they get away from the run later in the game with Derrick Henry when you should do the exact opposite. Keep hitting the ball. I don't care if he keeps getting 2-3 yards a carry. He will break one off and make a big play for you eventually. And let's be honest, it doesn't really matter because it's not like the passing offense is doing anything of any real surprise or anything of note. Ryan Tannehill is just managing it, trying not to throw interceptions, and I mean they've got receivers out there right now that their leading receiver is someone I've never really heard of. Robert Woods has been completely ineffectual, and Traylon Burks has been in and out of the lineup with injuries. So there's not much to talk about on that side. The defense has stepped up a lot through the last couple weeks. We'll see kind of how things go. The Broncos are a mess, just like we thought. Defense is good. Offense is just Russell Wilson can't seem to figure it out at all. So he may be the worst. This might be honestly go down as one of the worst trades in NFL history. That's where we're starting to trend towards. We talk about kind of the Herschel Walker trade and things like that in the past. From the Cowboys to the Vikings, and everyone thought it was, panned. Everyone thought it would be a dumb decision. And Herschel Walker barely ever did anything again. And it's looking the same way with Russell Wilson so far. There's multiple seasons they're committed to him, so maybe he steps it back up. But I don't know what more you can do to make this offense better with the personnel and the team they have and the structure they have. There's not too much. They've got a good offensive line, great weapons around him. Devontae Williams gets hurt, but still, the rushing attack still has some decent contributors. There's just really no excuse for why the Broncos' offense has been so bad. It maybe Nathaniel Hackett, Russell Wilson both needed to take a quick look and figure out what they need to do to make this team better. Because whatever this current structure is, it's not going to get better from a talent perspective. The offense can't really get that much better, except for that Russell Wilson needs to step up his game. Because that's the person that's really seemed to hold him back is the quarterback and the play call.
Absolutely. What makes things worse, Cease, Jerry Jeudy is now going to be out for probably a couple of weeks with an ankle injury too. So, I mean, they've just had bad injury luck for the Broncos the last couple of years, and then add into this year, your expectations are a little bit higher getting Russell Wilson, and it's a season they're going to want to forget. All right, the Chiefs beat the Jaguars 27-17. The Chiefs went up early in this game, hung on in the end. Some kind of key notes here. Mahomes passed for 4 touchdown passes. Isaiah Pacheco took over the Chiefs' backfield, 16 carries, 82 yards. Jerick McKinnon takes over the receiving work. Clyde Edwards-Helaire doesn't really play. That's like fantasy impact stuff. This obviously didn't have too much of an effect on the game. And your guy, Christian Kirk, 105 yards, 2 touchdowns, Cease. I mean, at least he got 2 of the garbage time touchdowns, 1 garbage time touchdown, 1 time in the second quarter, so that's nice.
Yeah, I mean, the Chiefs were always in control of this game 100%. The rushing attack for the Chiefs, it can change, honestly, week to week. There's really no rhyme or reason to it. It's just one of those classic. Got a backfield with a couple running backs can all do some things decently well, but none of them are really fantastic at anything. So it's really a hot hand situation. And the Chiefs, they're playing in garbage time. They'll have some touchdowns. Their passing defense is just not that great. And it's a big concern. It was a big concern going into this year. They let Tre'Davious Ward walk. They tried to draft Trent McDuffie, who's, been injured sometimes. And they, obviously the Honey Badger left as well to go back to his hometown, New Orleans. So, the Chiefs have basically built this team to say, they're good against the run and, they have a great offense, obviously. But when it comes to passing defense, that's one thing that they not only didn't improve, they got worse at. And, if anything, you look at kind of what cost them in both times, in the Bengals games twice, not to just make this a Bengals-centric thing, but, their passing offense was what allowed them to come back and win those games. That's what's going to lead them into these shootouts and these high-pressure situations after being so ahead early on in games, especially come playoff time, is there's going to be a lot of teams that are able to pass the ball very well. And the Chiefs just did not really try to do much to upgrade that position. They got worse at it. I think they've just really accepted that if it gets close, it's going to be a shootout, and they hope that their guy gets the ball, just like last year against Buffalo. So I don't know if that's a sound strategy by any means, but, they have cap constraints. They can only build a roster so many ways. They just got to trust that their offense will carry them.
Absolutely. That's I guess the perils of having a quarterback so good and having a tight end you're paying and everything too, an offensive line to protect them. And, like you said, Cincinnati going to have an issue like that in the future years with trying to figure out who to pay and who not to pay. You can't always have the greatest offensive defense. And Patrick, if anyone can cover up for the defensive mistakes, it's Patrick Mahomes. So could be some exciting games in the playoffs with him. All right, Cease. One of my favorite teams to talk about, the Miami Dolphins, 39-17 over the Cleveland Browns. Wasn't really a game past the first half. Tua Tagovailoa has 285 yards, 3 touchdowns in this game. Gets criticized for only throwing to Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. He spreads the ball out in this game, gets it to some different receivers. Jeff Wilson, who came over from San Francisco in the trade deadline deal, rushed for 119 yards and a touchdown. And as we've all known and talked about on the show, Cease, the Browns just do not have it this year, especially without Deshaun Watson. They're down to 3-6. They can run the ball, sure, but when you shut down the run, what are they going to do?
Right. And I mean, they're in danger of losing the next, out of their bye. They were in danger of losing the next three. It's a hard schedule. They obviously lost the Dolphins this week. It's not looking good for the Browns. I mean, it hasn't been looking good this whole time. I think some people, for some reason, gave them a slimmer hope after they beat the Bengals on Monday night at home. But the reality is it's a one-off rivalry game that you can't necessarily always account on for that to be the rest of the season. But the Dolphins just straight up dominated. It's becoming one of those offenses where, especially if you're in fantasy, you almost start everybody, regardless of, who's the number one, who's the number two. Everybody's getting yards, everybody's getting points, and everybody's happy. So, I mean, it's a great place to be. It's a good time of year to start catching fire. The defense still struggles at times, which is an issue. I know they traded for Bradley Chubb there, and, they've had some injuries in the secondary. That'll be their big question there is obviously is the offense going to – how will Tua take his first playoff appearance, which I think he will pretty well. He comes from Alabama. There's always been a lot of high-pressure games. I'm not really worried about that. It's more how will the defense do? You look at the Justin Fields, Bears-Dolphins game. You're going to face some offenses that are tough. It's a lot of first-time things. These guys haven't been there before besides probably Tyreek Hill and, some more of the role players, not really the main stars. So a lot of things to still see what will happen with the Dolphins. They're going to make the playoffs. I really don't have any doubt about that at this point. They're probably going to be the first wild card team just because the AFC East is probably going to go through the Bills. But even that's starting to get up in the air with Josh Allen's injury and them dropping some close games. So only time will tell. I wouldn't usually say this lightly. This might be a good time of year to see where the odds are at with the Dolphins. I mean, maybe put on a kind of a dark horse Super Bowl bet if the odds are still in a decent spot, which I think after this week they kind of changed a lot because considering Tua's MVP odds pretty much went from 20-1 to basically 6 or 7-1. So I think Vegas is starting to see it too. Dolphins are definitely a hot team right now. Let's see if they can keep that heat throughout the cold playoff season.
Yeah, 2-0 is here and real. We all know that. I think it is important for the Dolphins. I don't know how well this team plays in the bad weather seas. I think that's if they can get a chance to lock up home field advantage, win the AFC East while the Bills are currently struggling. Take advantage because I'd rather have Tua playing comfortably in Miami than going up to Buffalo and playing in a snowstorm like we're going to see this weekend. So that's my only kind of doubt with the Dolphins right now. That and the defense a little bit. All right, New York Giants beat the Houston Texans 24-16. The takeaway I had from this game, yes, good team beats bad team. That's really cool. Saquon Barkley, 35 carries. Brian Daboll is not afraid to use his guys. I know everyone wants to worry about running backs maybe wearing down, especially by the end of the year, especially a running back like Saquon Barkley. But I think if you're a team like the Giants who are still trying to prove they're legit, give it to your best players. This game is about the players, not necessarily always about the X's and O's. I like that Brian Daboll is doing that. They get the win. They're 7-2. Have to feel good about that.
Right. The NFL is all about maximizing your talent. At the end of the day, there's a lot of players that are really good, but there are very few who are stand above everybody else. And when you get one of those guys, you should try to get them involved as much as possible. Obviously, wear and tear is concerned. Them getting graded down, especially in a 17-game regular season, is always, a concern. But the reality is if you don't try to use your guys, you don't try to maximize and kind of create that identity as an offense or as a team in general, it's not going to matter come playoff time. And also, you're not going to make the playoffs probably. Use Saquon. Saquon is one of the best running backs in the NFL. He's one of the better players in the NFL. And you look at the rest of the offensive roster, they really don't have anybody else. So it's not like, we can give this game and focus on somebody else. Darius Slayton isn't going to be that guy. Daniel Jones isn't that guy. They're not going to just go, Saquon doesn't have it this week. We're just going to probably win this one. Probably not. Saquon is where this offense goes through at the end of the day. He's the focal point. Just like with the Titans, it's usually Derrick Henry.
Mm-hmm.
If they can't get them going and he can't be successful, the team's probably going to be in a tough spot and a really close game where it's just going to be difficult to come back and win. So, I mean, good for them. Another good win. It's the Texans. They play hard, but they never really have enough talent to do much of anything. And, the Giants rack up another win, and now they are in second for the NFC East, and they're really close, with the Eagles and the Cowboys right behind.
Yeah, interesting note from the Texans too, Cease. Yes, they're going to get a number one pick. Yes, they're going to take a quarterback even if Davis Mills is playing, better than we expected. They stripped Brandon Cooks of his captaincy because he requested a trade to be added to Houston, so he was awkwardly showing up to the game and everything as not a captain after the whole year being a captain. So there's just weird stuff going on in Houston, but that seems to be par for the course.
Yep.
All right, the New Orleans Saints and Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers won this one 20-10. They finally get Najee Harris going a little bit. He had 99 yards on 20 carries. Jalen Warren also ran the ball well. Kenny Pickett, not the greatest performance, but he got the job done for the Steelers in the end. The Saints, we've been talking about them. They've been reeling ever since they've gone to Andy Dalton as starting quarterback. They are now, Dennis Allen is saying now he's considering making a change. Unfortunately, it might be a week or two too late for their playoff hopes.
Yeah, I could have told you as soon as some other quarterback as soon as Jameis Winston was healthy, if that was the case, they should have gone back to him. Andy Dalton isn't going to win you games. It's that simple. Andy Dalton can manage a team with a talented roster. That is what he can do. That's what he did in Cincinnati.
Absolutely.
Leo also has very strong feelings towards Andy Dalton. But ultimately, he needs a strong team around. The Saints don't have that right now. The Steelers were playing at home. I thought that might be kind of a game that they would get that advantage. They finally got Najee Harris going. The Steelers played well enough not to lose. So good for them to get the win. The Saints, it's too little too late. Either they make a change now, or the NFC South is probably out of their grasp.
Absolutely. We'll see what they do, making a change there. Maybe just go Taysom Hill nowadays. I don't know. He's looked pretty good the times you've given him an opportunity to. So you picked the Steelers in that one, right?
I sure did.
All right, there you go.
I really did.
Good for you, buddy. Let's go to one of the more interesting games of the weekend, and sort of the result, but also just the whole story around this team. The Indianapolis Colts beat the Raiders 25-20. They finally get Jonathan Taylor going, 22 carries, 147 yards, 1 touchdown. The flip side, the Raiders pretty much used Devontae Adams, and that's about it. 9 receptions, 126 yards, and 1 touchdown. But the Colts get the win in Jeff Saturday's first game as an NFL head coach. A lot of criticism was given that he shouldn't have gotten the job. He didn't deserve it. He's not the guy. He has no coaching experience. And let's not forget that this was also the Colts against the Raiders, who Josh McDaniels left at the altar, basically, accepted the job one day and then left the next day. So this had to feel good for Colts fans. And they also started Matt Ryan in this game too, which he is definitely the better quarterback than Sam Ehlinger. So I'm not going to say the season's over for them quite yet. Yes, they shouldn't have made the move for Jeff Saturday, but it was a good win. Raiders still stink, but that's okay.
Right. We know Sam Ehlinger wasn't the answer. I understand, let's give it a game. Let's see if we see anything for a week or two. After that, I don't care if Matt Ryan's arm is shot. Matt Ryan with one arm is still probably better than Sam Ehlinger in the NFL right now. It's that simple. At least then maybe a team goes, maybe, you have to respect it just a little bit. Even if they think he's washed up, they got to sit back there and go, just maybe he's got 1 or 2 plays left in the tank, and they need to respect that. Sam Ehlinger, you don't need to respect anything because there's no body of work. There's nothing suggesting this guy is going to be immensely talented or develop anything in the NFL. That being said, Jonathan Taylor was also back. And Jonathan Taylor ran the ball very well, and that set up the pass a great deal in this. And, Matt Ryan got all the receivers involved. He got Michael Pittman involved. He got Paris Campbell involved. That stuff's very important for a running, functioning offense. They just did kind of the basics in this game, and it's enough to beat a Raiders team that is just abysmal at this point. That Josh Daniels didn't get fired after this one. Again, maybe the Raiders are trying to tank for a giant pick. Because at this point, you've come into the season, been completely flat, played terribly, huge comeback from behind loss against the Cardinals. The team looks worse than it did under the assistant head coach who got the interim coach job, Rick Versace, by a wide margin. And then on top of it, now you got beat by a guy who literally has never coached the NFL once, a play caller who's never called plays in the NFL, and you lose to him, and you lose to him pretty handedly. And they're doing very basic stuff. It wasn't anything. Oh, this was an amazing game plan. It was they ran the ball with Jonathan Taylor, and then they set up the pass with Matt Ryan and that running game, that play action. That's all they did. And the Raiders' offense can't figure anything out. If Devontae Adams will get his yards, that's great, but there's nothing else. Josh Jacobs got kind of stuffed. The defense of the Colts held up pretty well. And from there, the Raiders' defense is just terrible. They aren't very good. They don't really have any great players. They whiffed on a lot of draft picks, considering they just released one of their first-round picks. There's the safety, just a couple like last week. So a lot of problems with the Raiders. You need to get rid of Josh McDaniels. He's not made the team any better. You can argue maybe the team isn't that great to begin with, but he's not getting the best out of these guys either. And there's a proven track record of from last year to this year, the roster really isn't that different. Sure, maybe injuries are a little more, but that doesn't excuse how much worse the product on the field is. And that comes right down to the head coach.
All right, Cease. Two things. One, do you think an average person could coach the Raiders better? Just on the street.
At this point, yes.
Okay, number two. Reports today the Raiders can't afford to fire Josh McDaniels. They want to fire him now. They've noticed they noticed they screwed up after 9 games. They can't fire him because they don't have the money to, because Mark Davis is not a very rich owner. Kind of goes with the problem of NFL teams being stuck in some of these family situations. If the families don't want to win or don't have the money to win, you sometimes can't. So, awful situation for Las Vegas. They are stuck with Josh McDaniels, what seems like for the foreseeable future if they can't afford him, and that's not a good thing. Not a good thing. All right, the Cardinals beat the Rams 27-17. Both these teams have struggled this year, but neither starting quarterback played in this one, Cease. But honestly, the Cardinals looked really good with Colt McCoy at quarterback. I'm not saying it's better than Kyler Murray, but maybe injected some life. I mean, he also had an easier matchup going against the Rams without Matthew Stafford. But the Cardinals looked like they had one of the best games they've had all season.
Yeah, in a battle of the backups, the Cardinals definitely did better. Colt McCoy definitely looks like a much better backup. He's always been on that fringe of probably, the 30 to 40th best quarterback range. He's kind of in that first top backup tier, and he showed it in this game. They were able to get some rhythm in this game. I think that was a big thing to help Cliff Kingsbury and the play calling and just the whole, mindset and game plan for the offense. Sometimes with Kyler Murray is something I read a lot recently. It's just things are kind of erratic because, one, his ability to run is a helpful thing, but at times he can be a little too quick to do that and, try to make a play with his legs instead of trying to have a good offensive game plan that guys can execute and know what they're doing. So that's big. And two, the Rams just looked awful all around. I mean, the defense didn't really do anything. John Wolford at quarterback looks awful, and I mean, I can't really say that's surprising. And then they lose Cooper Kupp on top of it for probably the rest of the season. So, yeah, at this point, any of those people who picked Rams as repeat Super Bowl champions, I feel really bad for, because this team is going to go down as one of the worst Super Bowl, the team, the year after winning the Super Bowl, this is going to be one of the teams that are going to be talked about when they talk about Super Bowl hangover. And obviously injuries have happened, but even with they had every player, it has not looked good. And the game plan was basically just, let's just survive till OBJ is available again, and that didn't work. And you can, like I said, you can blame injuries, you can blame a lot of things. You can blame, they played so long into last year and it's affecting them this year. But at the same time, the game plan just wasn't there this year. They had running backs that I don't know what went behind the scenes, but they didn't really seem committed to them. It seems there's a lot of confusion why they didn't try to figure that out before the season began. Question mark. Why was their option for a number 2 receiver behind Cooper Kupp Van Jefferson, Ben Skoranek, or end of list? Why was your answer, let's re-sign OBJ once he's healthy? Why not try to get number 2? I guess you had Allen Robinson, but that completely and utterly fell on its face. So it's a mess. I feel bad if you're the Los Angeles Rams, and a lot of these guys are probably thinking maybe it would have been a smarter idea to hang it up and just ride off into the sunset versus coming back for what this season has been, which has been a kind of a nightmare for them.
Yeah, and the worst news is because they F them picks, they will not be having their own draft picks. So I would say, like shut Cooper Cup down for the rest of the season. Maybe shut Matthew Stafford down at a certain point. But you're not even going to get your pick out of it. You're just saving them for next year and hoping that things go better. But they still need to address a lot of things, including that offensive line without Andrew Whitworth, as you mentioned, weapons behind Cooper Cup on offense because no one besides Cooper Cup is a weapon this year on their offense, and just honestly defensively too, they have some holes to clean up too. So um, just made things. I mean, yes, you got a Super Bowl out of it. It was worth it, but you're in the situation in now because you made that sacrifice. Cecil, your 49ers, 22-16 over the Chargers. They had a competitive first half against them. The Chargers were up 16 to 10. The 49ers hang on defensively in the second half, don't allow a point, and they end up winning. This is a lot of thanks to Christian McCaffrey, Elijah Mitchell, both running the ball very well. And that defense is pretty scary. This is not a team, again, kind of like the Titans. They're not going to blow any teams out, so the spread was kind of messed up for this game. But they did get the win. That's all that matters.
Yeah, this is a sneaky team that can do things like you said, like the Titans. They're not flashy. They don't do things, in some crazy big play kind of way. It's we're going to pound the ball. We have two really great running backs. We have, they have skill position players all over this offense. Mm-hmm. But it's all really predicated on getting that run game going and just running over guys. It's not about long passes. It's about yards after catch. It's about George Kittle running, getting a ball 3 yards and then running for another 20 because he breaks tackles. It's about Deebo Samuel breaking tackles and just being elusive in the backfield. That is what their offense does well. It's not about throwing the ball, bombing it down the field for 40 yards. It's not who they are. It's never who they're going to be. And arguably, it's been their downfall in a lot of these losses through the last couple of years where they've lost the Super Bowl, lost the NFC Championship game. It's because the other team has the explosive ability that they don't possess, at least on offense. The defense is great. Everything. Their secondary's gotten kind of banged up this year. They lost Jason Verrett with a torn Achilles, this week. So, there's definitely a hole on one of the cornerback sides right now. But other than that, they've got 3 good safeties. Pretty much Jimmy Ward's playing the slot just so he can be on the field at all times now. And the offense. They didn't have Eric Armstead in this game. Javon Kinlaw has pretty much been out most of the season. And Dre Greenlaw got ejected in the first half on a very controversial, unnecessary roughness play where basically Justin Herbert got tackled. It changed the trajectory of where he was falling, and it became a helmet-to-helmet contact. Which, if you want to throw the 15-yard penalty, that's fine. You can argue it. It sucks. That's the reality of where we're at as a football team and as a football league. But the reality that you're kicking somebody out for that hit when it's very clear that wasn't the intent at all, that's another thing completely. Take the 15 yards, work with it. That's how the play's called. But don't eject people. It doesn't make any sense. Are we going to do this in key games where, somebody gets tackled from behind, they get their legs put out from under, somebody's trying to go for the body, you fall, you hit the helmet, and you're out of the game when that wasn't your intent at all? It's the same with targeting in college. That's fine if you want to throw penalties, but the idea that one and done is it, and there's really no review, there's no real appeal of this. It's just one of your key players can be out of the game for no reason other than a fluky play. It's not good. It's not good for the product on the field. It's not good for these teams, especially if this comes into play in a key game or in a playoff game. You don't want that happening. It's, again, if it's not malicious and obvious, totally fine with ejecting players. There's no place in that in the NFL. It's not fair play. It's dirty play. Nobody is arguing that or is for that. The reality, though, is things happen where you've got to kind of try to manage intent. I know it's not always, it's very subjective at times. But you can look this play and you can tell these are bang bang things. It's not like he changed direction and tried to hit him in the helmet. So that's my stump speech for that. Don't do it. I think there should be a little bit more of maybe a 2-strike, sort of system for this. As they've had towards, this is your first play towards ejection for many other different personal foul penalties. This should be reviewed a little bit better by New York next time. But 49ers come back in the second half. a lot of this has to go, the Chargers played well. They have nobody left in the interior defensive line, and the 49ers took advantage of it. But, Chargers have another stumbling block. They've got a lot of injuries that are mounting. They got a key matchup against the Chiefs this week we'll talk about in a little bit. But, they're 5-4. They're at that same crossroads that the Bengals are, basically, where it's going to be tough to make it in the AFC playoff race. You got to win some key games, and it's hard. I know they've got probably an easier schedule than the Bengals do, especially after this Chiefs game. But still, if they lose the Chiefs, that puts you at 5-5. That puts pretty little room for error. So, and the injuries don't seem to be getting much better for them. So we'll see what the Chargers do. The 49ers are putting themselves in the driver's seat for the NFC West. They got another key matchup with the Seahawks coming up. And, this team can be very good. It's just really watching Jimmy Garoppolo meander around the backfield at times, looking like he has no idea what he's doing. It's kind of weird. It really is. It's weird to see a team that's so good and the quarterback is, there's some guys that just make key mistakes or key bad reads. Jimmy Garoppolo just seems to be like holding the ball and I don't know what he's doing. But basically, if you don't pressure Jimmy Garoppolo, he has a way harder time. So let him think and make the mistakes. Because when you blitz him, Shanahan's too good at designing plays that he can beat it because there's a first or second read that's going to be available. But if you sit there, you blanket the coverage, he is going to struggle, and he's not like Joe Burrow who's eventually going to figure it out. Jimmy Garoppolo will struggle when he is forced to make a decision.
Absolutely, he will. That's the biggest knock on Jimmy Garoppolo is he's not making plays right now. He has, I think, the most wins in NFL history without throwing a touchdown pass or something like that. You'll have to see the stat. I forget what it is exactly, but it's something like that. But yeah, that's kind of the system they run, and if he can do that, more power to him. And you're right about the unnecessary roughness stuff. I get it. We want to keep players safe, but at the end of the day, it's not like anyone's going out there trying to hurt anyone. This is not like the 80s when people were literally like twisting people's ankles under the pile. Vontaze Burfict is out of the league. James Harrison's out of the league. All these dirty players are out of the league. There's not as many dirty players. So unless there's a real reason to, I do not like kicking players out of the game and changing the outcome. Monday Night Football sees the Commanders beat the Eagles 32-21. Eagles' first loss of the season. The Commanders specifically did a good job running the ball on them. Brian Robinson had 86 yards and a touchdown. Terry McLaurin could not be stopped even when he was guarded by Darius Slay. He had 8 catches for 128 yards. As you mentioned, Taylor Heineke is a gamer. He just kind of keeps the Commanders in the game, even if they're not. Even if he throws a pick, even if they're not as talented as the team, he deserves some credit for this one as well. Big win for them. The Eagles, they have identified that they give up too many rushing yards recently, even though the Commanders only average 3.1 rushing yards per carry. They've signed Linval Joseph, the former Minnesota Viking, to plug up the middle of that defense to help out with their defensive line depth to kind of help stop the run. Losing the game's not a big deal, but I think they saw the long-term implications of that loss, and they're trying to fix it now.
Yeah, I think there's a blueprint here. The Eagles, we talked about it, they're not unbeatable by any means. They've had an easier schedule, and people harp about it all the time. They've gone on a run and they've executed very well. But there are points in the game where, and it can be a game that they're winning by a good margin, that their offense disappears, and then the defense starts giving up some points, and that they somehow got to snap back into it. Jalen Hurts is dynamic, but he's not usually lighting the world on fire, on the stat line, especially when it comes to passing. And that's the thing we knew about Jalen Hurts going into the season, right? I think it's been lost in the fantasy talk and the whole idea that the Eagles have been gone undefeated this far. Jalen Hurts still isn't an elite quarterback. He's in the MVP conversation because of their wins. He is involved in pretty much every touchdown, it seems. But I wouldn't say he's an elite quarterback in the NFL, or even I don't even know if I'd say necessarily he's a top 10 guy. I think he's right on that cusp now going into this, what we've seen this season, but he's not elite. What is the coaching, the structure of the offense, and then the defense has really, can be elite at times as well. But, they're trying to address their holes. This is one of those classic rivalry trap games that you don't bet the house on. It's just a bad idea because this stuff happens, especially when you're in the same division. The worst team will win sometimes just because they have more heart in it and they're being overlooked, and the other team's just sitting on their laurels knowing I'm 8-0 and I should win this game and we're going to win this game and not really put together the effort until too late in the game. And I mean, the Eagles were close there at the end. They were driving and then, Quez Watkins fumbles a catch and that's the end of it. The Commanders bring it back for a pick, a fumble, scoop, and score. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, the Eagles, not a perfect team. Again, NFC is a weird place this year where I don't think there's really anybody that's supremely talented. The Vikings and Eagles, who are they? They're the top two teams right now, you can argue. And you can also argue, I don't know if either of these teams are truly amazing and, truly dominant teams like we might see in the AFC. Where, I mean, heck, you could probably pick the Dolphins over each of these two teams. And I would totally say that is probably I favor the Dolphins in both those matchups. So, yeah, there's lots of football still to be played. If anything, that's going to be good for the Eagles because they learn from their mistakes and they learn that they are beatable and they're in the thick of, trying to get home field advantage still. They're now tied with the Vikings, who also has one loss. Obviously, they would have the tiebreaker there because of their head-to-head matchup. But other than that, I mean, there's not a huge margin there for them so far. Both them and the Vikings have had an easy schedule. Will continue to have an easy schedule, and from there, I mean, we will see what happens come playoff time. But it's good that they're trying to address those holes now, and it's good for the Commanders and Tyler Heineke to continue to try to win games. And be, that gamer type, to be that guy who, should probably get a starting opportunity for one of the lower end NFL teams, right? As your bridge guy. I think he's earned that at this point. I'm not saying he's ever going to be the guy or a guy who's going to manage a really talented roster to some playoff wins. I'm not saying that. But if you need a bridge guy, then you just need somebody who's a good locker room guy, a guy who's, going to develop your young core and keep you in football games so they can feel confident about themselves. Taylor Heineke is probably your guy.
Yeah, and see, I mean, what do we? I mean, the Commanders now 500, NFC beast, baby. They're not gonna have a chance to draft a. You might be the quarterback for them next year again.
Very well, could be. I mean, at this point, how many more times can Taylor Heineke be shoved away by the Commanders? At what point do you just accept that this is your guy, at least for the short term?
Yeah, until you get a chance to get a guy who's significantly better than him, right? Not just Carson Wentz, right? Alex Smith, I get the injury that played into some parts here, but since Alex Smith's injury, he's been the guy who's kept you in games. He's been the most fun to watch. He's a gamer that it seems like the locker room really likes him, and they're gonna go into next week. They're probably gonna be 6-5 because they play the Texans. We'll pick it later, but this is not where we saw the team going after they started the year 1-4. So I'm with you. I think he should get a chance to start. I think the Commanders should next year use their first round pick on a player to help him out, to help other people out in the organization. They have some issues on defense. They spent so many picks on wide receivers. Maybe don't spend one there, but they can definitely get some impact players and contend in that NFC beast. There's so many good teams now.
I mean, you look at the roster. I mean, one, quarterbacks are expensive. So to continue to sign veteran quarterbacks, it costs a lot of money to do that, to keep picking up these contracts and things like that. Tyler Heineke doesn't have that big price tag, one, and is honestly getting better results than Ryan Fitzpatrick and obviously Carson Wentz this year with his still albatross of a contract that keeps getting just kicked down the road. So ultimately, I mean, they've got enough receivers. They got Terry McLaurin. They got Curtis Samuels. They got Josh Doxson, who they drafted years ago, who comes in as a steady role player. I mean, they've got a good situation in the skill positions. They've got Brian Robinson. They've got Antonio Gibson. Maybe shore up the offensive line a little bit more, obviously, now that, you've lost some of your key guys there. And then, I mean, you've got a lot of guys in the front seven for the Commanders. They've drafted, linebacker and defensive tackle year after year out of Alabama, it seems. And there are a couple, maybe a secondary. If you go with Taylor Heineke in this draft, because you're not going to be able to draft a elite quarterback, draft a key secondary piece or, draft some offensive linemen, and you could be a team that is competitive. And this team has shown has the ability to, manage to be 500. Maybe they're a couple pieces away from being a playoff team, much like the Andy Dalton Bengals. If you build a strong core, which they honestly already have a lot of great guys, and just go, Taylor Heineke, this is your team. The NFL, especially with the schedule they probably get from being one of the worst team in the NFC East, I mean, they could pull off some wins against some lower tier talent and make the playoffs. It's a parity driven league, and they'll have every advantage to take. They'll have every opportunity to take advantage of it as long as they decide to not mortgage everything away to try to draft another, third or fourth best quarterback in the NFL draft.
Yep, and the good news for them too, Chase Young probably going to play this week for the first time this season after tearing his ACL last year. That defense might get a little bit better. I mean, you never know what could happen this year. You never know what could happen in the future if you just keep on building instead of trying to go get Carson Wentz. All right, let's go to our Week 11 picks, Cecil. This is one of my favorite weeks of the NFL calendar, I think, just looking at the matchups, looking at some of the weather games we're going to get. The Thursday night game's actually good, so we're going to start there. We have the Tennessee Titans at the Green Bay Packers. Packers favored by 3 points after beating the Cowboys in their best performance of the season this Sunday.
You know what? I'm gonna take the Packers to win, but I'm gonna take the Titans with the points because I think this is going to be a razor thin game. Honestly, these teams right now, what their strengths are a good running game and a good defense. That's what both teams do very well. Packers are at home. You've got to respect that. They're coming off a good win, and their quarterback is, it's basically Aaron Rodgers better than Ryan Tannehill. These two teams are the exact same almost. I'm going to take Aaron Rodgers over Ryan Tannehill. Not by a lot, especially if they get some weather in Lambeau, but Aaron Rodgers at home is going to be hard to overcome if all you're doing is two rush-heavy offenses just eating the clock away. So it could very well come down to who can score in the last 2 minutes of the second, who can score, in the 2-minute drill at the end of the game as well. And if I had to pick between the Titans passing offense and the Packers, I'm going to pick the Packers. So that's why they're going to win this game by a razor slim margin.
All right, I'm going Titans with the upset. I'm going Titans against the spread. As you mentioned, I think this game, both running offenses are what they do best. The Packers sometimes just don't realize that. That's the problem. But if you're going to give me a chance here to give me points with these matchups where I think the Titans have honestly looked better for the majority of the year, and you're playing Derrick Henry on a short week. There's one guy you don't want to play on a short week. It's Derrick Henry. You're still recovering from getting sore from the last week. The Packers are already worn down with so many injuries, especially defensively this year. I'm going to go Titans. They're 7-2 against the spread this year, so that's why I'm taking them against the spread. And I think at that rate, it's close enough that I think they can get the win. Especially, this is a team a couple weeks ago that played the Chiefs really, really tough and arguably should have won that game. And I think the Chiefs are a little bit farther ahead than the Packers. So I'm going to go Titans to win and with the points. All right, over to Sunday. We do not have an early game this week in London or in Germany, but we do have 1 p.m. game, and it's the Detroit Lions at the New York Giants. Giants favored by 3.
Give me the New York Giants to win and cover. They're a better team. Again, it's one of those things. Are the Giants that talented roster-wise? No, but they are coached well. It's a close enough spread too, where maybe the Giants have one, or the Lions have one of those crazy offensive games again, where they score a bunch of points, but the defense can't stop anybody anyway, so it doesn't matter. So maybe it could very well be a close game. I think it will be to a certain extent, but ultimately I got to pick the very well coached and doing a great job New York Giants team.
I'm going with the same pick. I think New York's at home at this one. Saquon might be a little bit sore after last week, 35 carries, but they're using their players well. I don't think the Lions are a team that I would say they're going to go on a win streak at any point this season. They're going to get multiple wins in a row. Just don't see it happening the rest of the year. So I'll go Giants to win and cover. I think 3-point spreads is easy enough that they can get the job done there. Next one up, we have the teams that played a couple weeks ago. Sees the New York Jets at the New England Patriots. Patriots favored by 3.
Give me the Patriots to win and cover. They really had Zach Wilson struggle last time. That was my thinking behind going with the Patriots. Their defense played really well. I mean, Bill Belichick just matches up really well against the New York Jets always. So this time they're going to Foxborough. The weather's turning. It's only getting rougher out there. I got to go with the home team, win and cover.
I'm going Jets. The last time they played, they lost by 5, which I know is a little bit wider than our margin here. But I do think that they have a lot more confidence. They beat the Bills, went on a bye week. Now here they are going to play the Patriots again. They know they're probably the team that everyone's picking to kind of fall apart in this AFC playoff picture, AFC East picture, whatever you want to call it. Either way, They need to win this game. Their defense has been playing lights out this year under Robert Salah. They're giving up 19.6 points per game, and I think they can hold the Patriots to below that with the way things are going in New England this year with the quarterback controversy and just the no weapons that they have never addressed. Bill Belichick definitely, I think, has gotten them more wins than the talent on this roster definitely deserves. So I'll go Jets in this one. Not feeling too good about this pick either way, though.
Stay away.
Yeah. Los Angeles Rams at the New Orleans Saints. The Saints are favored by 3.5 or 4, depending on your sports book.
I don't care. Give me either. I'm going with the Saints to win and cover at this point. Saints aren't great, but they have an identity on offense. The Rams with Matt Stafford's very hurt. No Cooper Kupp. No running game. Defense is falling apart around them. They got to travel, from the West Coast down to New Orleans in a very vicious home crowd. I go Saints here to win and cover for sure.
I'm going Saints too to win and cover. I'm trusting that Dennis Allen is going to make a change at quarterback here too. Like, you can't keep on running Andy Dalton out there. As you said, the Rams are banged up. They haven't won good all year. Use Taysom Hill. Do whatever you got to do, but you can't lose this game. That either way, just put in Jameis, put in Taysom Hill, figure it out. They'll win and cover. Philadelphia Eagles at the Indianapolis Colts. The Eagles were favored by 7.5. That line is down to 6.5 now, Cease.
Give me the Eagles to win and cover here. I think this is also going to be one of those feel-good. Colts are ready to beat the Raiders. Obviously Philly's at the Colts, so that's always something to factor in as well. And the Colts defense is still very underrated at times. So I got to go with the Eagles, though. I think they just have much more explosive offense where they can just score a bunch of points at once, and the Colts are just not going to be able to answer to that. It's a much more difficult task to go in and play the Eagles than it is to go against the Raiders. So just Saturday probably got gifted a very easy team to beat. This is going to be a much harder, thing to do, and this is a very inexperienced coaching staff going against a good team.
Yeah, I'm going Eagles to win, but I'll go Colts with the points. I like that they're getting Jonathan Taylor back involved. I like that they put Matt Ryan back into the lineup because God knows Sam Ellinger was a train wreck. Yeah, I like those two things. I do think they got some positive vibes going to keep it close, but the Eagles are the better team. They'll be able to win on the road. All right, next one up, Cease. One of the more interesting games of the weekend. You might be thinking why when you think about the records, but wait till I explain it for anyone listening. We got the Cleveland Browns at the Buffalo Bills. Bills favored by 8 right now. That number has been coming down because there's a projected 31 inches of snow coming to Buffalo this weekend. It might be enough to move the game or reschedule. That's kind of how it goes when you get in those situations, but we're going to pick it as is because they could play, and that would be one of the most fun games we've seen.
I really hope they do. I think it's going to be still fun. I'm going to pick the Bills just because I think they'll clear enough snow off. Obviously, they have to clear snow off the field for them to play. And they'll probably continue to do that throughout halftime, all that stuff. It'll also depend, when the snowstorm happens, right? If it's happening during the game, all bets are really off. But the Bills are too talented a team. Even if you take the air out of the ball, I think they win. I think their defense is elite. I think they'll be able to limit the Browns. What makes this game interesting is because the Browns are literally just a rushing team. Jacoby Brissett, that passing offense doesn't really exist. It's about Nick Chubb, really. So that's the only thing that tells me it's going to be a very close game. But ultimately, I have faith in the stars on the Bills to be able to just beat the literal asymmetrical Nick Chubb, run the ball down the field in a snowstorm, and probably get a lot of yards and score some points for the Browns. And that's really going to be it for the whole Browns team. So I gotta go with the Bills in a very close one. I'm going Bills to win, but I'm taking the Browns with the points.
Yeah, I'm going Bills to win and cover too. I think if you're going to pick a quarterback to be able to play in a snowstorm, it's going to be a 6'6", huge running quarterback who also has an arm that is strong as whatever. Like, he can throw it through the wind. That's something the Browns don't have. It's going to be more one-dimensional for them, I think. So I'll go Bills to win and cover. I really do. I do think this is a tough line. So maybe this is one I'm not going to bet, especially with the weather. But I do feel decently confident that the Bills can get the win, and because of Josh Allen and the quarterback he is, even when injured. All right, Chicago Bears at the Atlanta Falcons. Falcons favored by 3, Cease.
Give me the Chicago Bears upset here. I just like where their team's at. I like Justin Fields is just getting used a lot. I think the Falcons are coming back down to earth. I think they're reeling. I think they're trying to figure out as a team their identity. They got a lot of running backs, and they're kind of not letting anyone get hot because they gave the ball to 4 different running backs this last week. That's not going to be the key to success for them. They got to pick who's getting the ball. If it's Cordell Patterson, almost exclusively, if it's him and Tyler Algiers or Caleb Huntley, they got to figure that stuff out, and they got to figure it out fast. Because again, the passing offense isn't doing much. Kyle Pitts barely gets used. The rest of the wide receivers aren't anything to write home about. They got to figure out their rushing attack, and they got to figure it out soon. I just think the Falcons' defense is not going to be good enough to really stop Justin Fields with his legs. So I'm going Bears in the upset.
I am too. Like you said, I really like what we're seeing out of Justin Fields. I think you are going to drop some games like they did to the Lions. Just nature of the business. They gave up a lot in terms of their defense, but I like the way they're using him. If fantasy football, he's going to be maybe the MVP for the whole year when you think about it, of where you could have gotten him, if you could have picked him up later in the season, whatever. Defense still scares me, but the Falcons aren't the team to really take advantage of that. Chicago Bears can stack the box and just make Marcus Mariota beat them, and I think they'll be able to pull off the upset, or at the very least take them against the spread. Carolina Panthers at the Baltimore Ravens. Ravens favored by 12.
Yeah, give me the Ravens to win and honestly cover. I think the Panthers are kind of in feel-good mode. They've had some rest, obviously, after playing on Thursday Night Football. But, this Ravens team is pretty good. They're very good. You look at what the Bengals did 2 weeks ago to them. I just think the Ravens are going to be able to just run all over them, and that's just going to be the end of the game ultimately. So give me the Ravens to win and cover.
Yeah, Panthers haven't won a game on the road. They looked pretty bad when they traveled to Cincinnati a couple weeks ago. I'll take the Ravens. They have coming off a bye in this one. I think they're going to get some guys healthier as the season goes on. They're looking like they're going to gear up for a little bit of a run maybe. So I'm going Ravens to win by 2 touchdowns. Washington Commanders at the Houston Texans. Mentioned this game a little bit earlier, but the Commanders are favored by 3 points.
Yeah, give me the Commanders to win and cover here. Houston plays hard, but again, I think Commanders are figuring out with Taylor Heineke. So I got to go with the hot team.
I do too. Like you said, Texans play hard, but Commanders are at a little bit different level. They're coming on a short week, but I still think they'll be able to win and cover on the road. That's not the biggest spread to cover, so they'll be able to do it. All right, off to the Sunday afternoon game, Cecil. This is the game people will probably be watching up until the other 2 games start, but the Las Vegas Raiders at the Denver Broncos, both teams in shambles. Broncos are favored by 2.5 points. I don't know. This is not a fun game.
Lord, it's just hard to even judge this team because it's like Josh McDaniels seems to be able to lose. He can lose to one of those wacky inflatable arm waving tube men.
Yeah.
I think could be the other head coach, and he'd probably somehow lose. Again, I think we could pretty much at this point have Vegas, people in the casinos just choose the next play for the Broncos. I think the Raiders would lose. But at the same time, Broncos don't know what happens. It seems like they play as bad as whatever their competition is and just find ways to lose games, whether it's fumbling in the red zone, taking sacks at the 40-yard line to get out of field goal range, just absolutely ironic, just absurd stuff. So I'm going to go with the Broncos to win because I think Patrick Surtain's going to do enough to try to shut down Devontae Adams. Not saying it's going to happen completely and he gets 20 yards or something, but I don't think it's going to be enough. And once that happens, Broncos defense is enough probably to suffocate Josh Jacobs in the run game. And that'll basically be all they wrote. All you need then is just Russell Wilson to just get 17 points and they'll win this game. That's all he needs to do is get 17 points. Heck, even 14. Situationally. I think if they score a touchdown first, they're in their win probability probably goes up to 80%. So, come on, Russell Wilson. Get it together, and please don't make this into a last-second field goal chip shot to beat this terrible Raiders team. So, Broncos are going to win, and I got to go with them with a 2.5-point spread.
17 points. Easier said than done for them. Jeez, that's a lot.
I know, man. I'm asking moving mountains over here.
It's like asking a fourth grader to do trigonometry or something. Jeez. Yeah, I don't like this game. I don't like gambling on this game. I don't like picking this game. I'm going Raiders. They gave me points. I'm going to take the Raiders. I'll take the Raiders against this. I'll take the Raiders straight up too. I don't care. I hate both teams. It could go either way. McDaniels is an awful coach, but the Raiders still have some talented pieces. The Broncos are anemic on offense, and they're having injuries just pile up. This game, the only reason why people watch this game is because of the logos. Like the old rivalry, the logos on the helmets say they're NFL teams. But the only way this actually gets good is like if it's so bad, it's good. This is not going to be a 42-35 shootout. It's just going to be maybe Russell Wilson throws 3 picks or Derek Carr throws 3 picks or does something stupid. That's kind of it's going to be so good. It's so bad it's good is the only thing I could think. But I'll take the Raiders. Why not? Raiders both sides.
I can see the logic of the Raiders have shown they can score points, which ultimately, if we go back to the John Madden quote, the team that scores more points will win the game most of the time. So I think we have to agree with that here. My only argument is that the Broncos defense is good, and the Raiders have also seen times where Derek Carr throws for like 100 yards and nothing happens. So it's just I think we'll see more offense in the 36-inch snowstorm than we will out of this game.
Well, I just looked down on my phone, Cease. KJ Hamler is going to miss the next few weeks, too. So just add that to the Broncos' struggles. I'm more confident than ever in my Raiders pick. I am not going to go bet that at the casino, but I'm more confident than ever.
Nope, don't even touch it.
All right, the start of the two, I think, interesting 4 p.m. time slot, 4:25 p.m. time slot games. The first one is the Dallas Cowboys at the Minnesota Vikings. Right now, the Cowboys are favored by 1.5 on the road.
I'm going with Cowboys. I gotta go with the home team. I think that's really going to be the key to it.
That's the away team, buddy. They're favored on the road.
Well, that changes things. Not really. I like what the Cowboys do. Ultimately, I think they're a really good rushing team. I think they got kind of bum rushed by a Packers team that just somehow came out of nowhere, and Aaron Rodgers it's just something about the Packers and the Cowboys. I'm just going to try to throw that game away. I think Micah Parsons comes back in this game. I think they're angry. They're frustrated. They know they need to keep pace with the NFC East. And I think the defense shuts down what happened on offense last week with the Vikings. Because ultimately what happened was Justin Jefferson made some of the most improbable, unstoppable catches that you can't beat. So does Justin Jefferson do that every play again this week? I don't think that's humanly possible just from a statistical point. So from that, I think the Cowboys are better set up, and I think that Dak Prescott in the offense keeps taking steps forward, and I think they give the Vikings defense a run for their money in this one. And Zeke, hopefully, is Zeke supposed to be back this week or not?
Supposed to be, but you never know.
Regardless, Tony Pollard, some would say, is the better running back. So give me the Cowboys to win and cover the 1 point.
Well, I hope you're right, Cease. I'm going Vikings. I don't think this line makes much sense on paper. I'll go Vikings straight up and Vikings against the spread. It's 1.5 points, so that makes sense. But I don't think it makes much sense when you take into account the Cowboys' second straight road game. They have Zeke banged up, and we did just see Justin Jefferson, do something I've never seen in my life. And he's going against Trayvon Diggs, who, yes, he might get an interception, but he might also give up 50, 75, 100 yards. You never really know with him. So I'll go Vikings in the situation. I think the key here, the Cowboys can definitely win this game, but they need to start using Micah Parsons in pass rushing situations more. He played his fewest snaps at edge rusher since like week 7 or 8 last year, something like that. It's crazy. It's been like this whole season he's played edge rusher a lot more, and they took him away from that role. They obviously paid the price against the Packers. You have to use him in that role because he's good, and when you have him on one side and DeMarcus Lawrence on the other offensive line is going to be praying that they stop you. So they need to do that to put pressure on the offense. If they do that, I could I could be convinced that the Cowboys will win, but I'll stick with the Vikings for now. Cincinnati Bengals at the Pittsburgh Steelers. Bengals favored by 3.5 on the road, but Cease, remember they did lose the first matchup between these teams.
They did, and in a very flukish-y way. So that game is it's ensnared in my head. I said it was going to be a lot closer than people put the odds out that week. I said the Bengals will win, but it was going to be very close, and to not kind of sleep on the Steelers. This time, I'm going with the Bengals to win and cover. Reasoning is I don't think they play that close twice. I I think the Bengals are in a better place. I think they've now practiced, which is a huge thing. The whole team basically barely had any live snaps. They went into a rivalry game against a team who plays very aggressively and is out there to hit people. So I think they know what they're getting into. The Bengals had the whole bye to get healthy, get back into shape here. And I think they're going to be a much better result. I'm not saying it's a blowout, but they should be able to win and cover this one. I don't think it's going to be that close. So with that all being said, the Bengals and Steelers home road splits all time. For some reason, these teams seem to beat each other as the away team. They don't win as much against on home. So the Bengals also have that going because usually you think the team on the road has a big disadvantage. Doesn't seem to be that way in this rivalry for some reason. So ultimately, with all those factors, I got to say the Bengals win this one. I think they win it by a touchdown.
Yeah, I got this early in the week. I got the line. I got the Bengals favored by 5. I took the Steelers in my weekly picks against the spread article that I do on Tuesdays. The line we're recording on Wednesday is now 3.5. That changes things a little bit, but I'll stick with the Steelers against the spread. I think Bengals might win this game by a field goal. It's just a large number when the Bengals haven't proven they can stop an elite pass rusher like T.J. Watt is and like he did in the first game. So I'm going to go Steelers against the spread. I'm going Bengals to win this time. I do think they've maybe learned from their first game. Maybe we'll have extra help with T.J. Watt. And as you said, they are healthier overall. Chidobe Awuzie being out for the season is definitely something I am concerned about. But fingers crossed, talent levels should show out. They're a much more talented team, so that's what I'm hoping for here. Sunday Night Football, Steve, you mentioned this game earlier. The Kansas City Chiefs at the Los Angeles Chargers. Kansas City Chiefs favored by 6.5 points.
Yeah, give me the Kansas City Chiefs to win and cover here. The Chargers are just banged up. They're talking about maybe Keenan Allen or Mike Williams plays. If they do, I don't know how 100% they are, considering that they're both kind of up in the air. They need those guys back to really have a chance. The Chiefs are just really good. They're going to dominate. Excuse me. I have really no doubt about that. So I don't think it's going to be a blowout, but I think, a touchdown, I think, is a very fair outcome prediction here. So I go with the Chiefs to win and cover.
I'm going Chiefs to win, Chargers against the spread. Chiefs, I think, are the better team right now. Patrick Mahomes is doing great even without Tyreek Hill. That much is known. That the running backs change every week. Pacheco is currently the guy. Should be the guy the rest of the season, at least for the running snaps. Doesn't really matter. That's not what this is all about. I think the Chargers do get healthier. I do think they keep it close, though. 6.5 points is still a lot to cover for two teams that are separated by 2 games in the standings. I'll take the Chargers against the spread. Again, this is a spread I think is kind of a tricky one, so I would not go gambling on this one. But to each their own. Monday Night Football, we have a game in Mexico City. So we have the 49ers and the Arizona Cardinals. 49ers favored by 8.
49ers to win. I'm picking the Cardinals with the points. We kind of already went over this a little bit. 49ers are not going to be a team that's going to beat the brakes off you when it comes to points. They're just going to do things really well. They're going to limit your offense, and they're going to run the ball and run the game out, basically. That's what they do. That's what they're known to do. I'm not ever going to be seeing a stat line where honestly the 49ers score 35 points. And that's okay because their defense is going to limit the other team to less than 20. And I think, as long as the 49ers can get to 21 points, they win. So that's going to be kind of the outcome here. I don't think the Cardinals are necessarily going to make it a close game. I think the 49ers are going to have them more than handled. The offense is just going to try to control the ball, and that'll kind of right it home.
Yeah, for context, the over-under for this game is 43.5, which is only 2 points more than the Raiders-Broncos, which is 41.5. So, as you said, this just means that the 49ers don't blow out teams. They're not a team that scores a lot of points. That's why, if the over-under is 43, I found it hard to believe the 8-point spread's there. It could definitely happen, but this is one I would say, I'm going to probably put some money on. You never know here, but put money on the Cardinals against that spread. Getting 8 points is nice, and the 49ers will win in the end. It might be by touchdown. It might be 7 points, but 8 points just kind of put it over the edge for me as one that I would definitely take the Cardinals against the spread. All right, Cece, those are our picks for the week. Any final thoughts?
No, just excited for another week, and I really hope they play the Snowstorm game in Buffalo.
Absolutely. That'd be a fun one to watch. Everyone enjoy the football this weekend. Make sure to like, subscribe to the podcast wherever you're listening or on YouTube as well. That helps us out. For now, thanks for listening. We'll see everyone next week.